First of all, I want to thank everyone for carving out a few minutes here today to join myself and CompScience to learn a little bit about technology and what we can do to help you win new business as well as insulate your accounts from competitors, also known as the wedge. This is, we'll get through this information in about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to allow some time at the end for questions. And so please, if you have any questions, all you have to do is put them in the chat or the Q&A actually, and I will address those towards the end and hopefully answer everyone's questions. So just continue to type away in the Q&A session as we go through it, and I'll get to them towards the end. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get this going. So my background prior to joining CompScience, I'm a 20-year veteran of the insurance industry, at least in the P&C side. I was 3 or 4 years in the healthcare space as well, but was an executive at Accident Fund up until March of 2020 when I left to join the agency side. So most of my career has been spent in and around work comp, at least in terms of the insurance products. And so when I had the opportunity last year to join CompScience to help grow the insurance vertical, frankly, I jumped at the chance to do so. It gives me a chance to work with a lot of agency partners I've worked with throughout my 20-year career across the country. And again, really helping you win and retain critical business, especially those businesses that are struggling with losses, have an experience model that's either high or trending upwards, and really losing out to some of the hidden costs of work comp that they have when employees are no longer able to do their job. So with that, our technology, when I talk to some of our best producers here at CompScience, they really share a couple of things in common. Really, they're tired of talking about price and service as their differentiator. They're truly passionate about delivering value to their clients. They want to separate themselves from their competitors and really have something to talk about that rarely others have available to them. And oftentimes they're forward-thinking, embracing technology, and again, kind of seeing what they can do to deliver value to their clients. And you can see on the screen a couple of quotes from some of our agency partners on how they view CompScience and what it means to them to deliver this kind of value to their clients. So with that, when I was on the carrier side at Accident Fund, I had a team of 40 loss control consultants ultimately reporting up through me. These were some of the best I'd ever worked with, but at the end of the day, they're still human. And so, despite the fact that even when a company or a carrier has loss control programs in place, they're human. They can't physically observe all of the exposure. They're often only there once or twice a year for a couple of hours at a time. People know that they're coming, and so they're on their best behavior. So you're going to get limited perspective from that person there once or twice a year. They're typically not counting things on their visit. So they really can't quantify the exposure at the end of the day. And when you can't quantify it, you also can't measure the improvement from one valuation to the next. So those are the three typical limitations that I see from traditional loss control. Now, with what you're going to find from CompScience, we have been able, through use of video technology, we've been able to overcome all three of these shortcomings of traditional loss control. Because of that, you're going to have infinitely more insight to how to improve the workplace safety of your clients. We're going to convert that existing video footage that already is being saved to their servers and convert it through use of computer vision and AI into usable data for workplace safety. We've shown that we can actually reduce rates 10 to 20%, improve and lower the total cost of risk. And all the client has to do at the end of the day is simply upload video. So there's no wearable devices to buy. The employee doesn't have to remember to wear something. They simply upload existing video footage that otherwise would have had been recycled at some point, and we're able to wring out of that information additional loss control exposure. On the screen is a really quick example of how it works. And so this client actually came to us with a history of slips, trips, and falls in their facility, and they ultimately couldn't get their hands around what was causing it. What we found is that the employees were in a hurry. They've got breaks to get to, lunches, production quotas to meet. And at the end of the day, it was simply too long of a walk to walk around the conveyor system. But when we worked with this client to ultimately provide our first risk report, we utilize heat maps to draw attention to frequency and severity. So what we uncovered during our analysis is something is happening at this conveyor system. And when we went to the video footage, you can see what's happening is essentially employees are hopping over it. And this led to twisted ankles, twisted knees, and worse injuries. And as you can see out to the left, in this case, we have done 3 evaluations of this client. Each of these are a 2-week analysis of their video footage. And you can see the first time that we analyzed their data, we counted nearly 600 instances of people doing this very thing that you see on the screen. So ultimately, we had 2 recommendations back to this client. 1, tell your employees to stop doing it immediately. That's free and easy. The second is to install a lift gate so that the employees can approach the conveyor system, lift up the gate, walk through, and put it down, and they no longer have to hop over. By the second period, all they had done is told their employees to stop. And you can see it helped, nearly a 50% improvement. But by that third period, they had actually implemented the lift gate that you see on the screen. And as a result, we were essentially able to engineer that exposure out of the company. Over the past year, as we spent standing up our insurance vertical, prior to that, we simply sold our software as a service. And then about a year ago, converted to additionally being able to write the work comp policy, where we simply pair the technology with it. We do not charge the client for the technology when we write the work comp. If they are in a captive, they're self-insured, they simply love their carrier, they can stay there. And then we can quote the software as a service, and they can still purchase the technology on a standalone basis and pair it with their existing work comp. But as such, the latest news that we have to offer is we are officially launching our MGA on 3/15. We're finalizing some last minute details, so I'm not going to yet share their name. They are a national carrier that will be very familiar to you, and we will have the underwriting authority for them beginning 3/15, also backed by Swiss Re. In addition to that, and in all of our states that we're licensed in, and I'll show you that map here in a little bit, we have available to us AmTrust, Hartford, and CompWest as well. At the end of the day, we don't need a volume of carriers. We're not a traditional wholesaler in that we need to provide you, dozens or hundreds of markets. Rather, we need a handful of carriers across the country where we can utilize our technology paired with their insurance policy to provide ultimately our solution. So again, more information coming out. There's an official press release coming out on March 15. We are delivering results. You can see we are reducing claims by 23%. That was an actuarial analysis by Swiss Re. We're reducing exposures in the neighborhood of 50 to 90% plus, and ultimately lowering that total cost of risk by nearly 20%. I mentioned all the client has to do is upload video footage. So we typically target a week or two's worth of footage twice a year, once at the beginning of the policy term and a second time about 5 or 6 months later. Or if they bought the software, we would do it at the beginning of the software agreement and another time 5 or 6 months later. They upload that video footage to us. It might be 50 to 100 hours, might be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the size of the company. And we're then going to apply our technology. It's both computer vision as well as artificial intelligence. And we're going to identify and quantify all of that workplace exposure. We're going to summarize that 2 ways for the client. We're going to provide them with a risk report we're also going to provide them with access to an online app where they can use it as a dashboard as well as a vehicle for launching the various videos that we uncovered for them. And they are going to use that for then toolbox talks, employee training. It's information for an OSHA visit should they want it, and otherwise contributes to their culture of safety at the company. Ultimately, we have over 50 hazards, as we call them, out of the box, where we've trained the computers through computer vision and AI to look for exposures. 90% of workplace injuries are going to fall into one of these 5 buckets, typically with ergonomics leading the way. But at the end of the day, our technology is going to uncover each of these types of exposures and then again portray it back to you in that risk report as well as an online app. I mentioned just a second ago the most common injuries are related to ergonomics. And sadly, there are no OSHA standards around this, and ultimately they're very hard to quantify and identify. They're basically what's referred to as a cumulative trauma injury. In this case, we've got a client of ours. It's a very similar story. We start with a heat map that draws attention to frequency or severity. We're able to quantify it. In this case, the employees have to hunch over to build windows day in and day out at the rate of 75 waste bends an hour. We counted nearly 6,000 waste bends per week when we did our first analysis. And ultimately, our solution here was to implement an A-line table, which transformed that flat work surface to a more vertical work surface. So now the employee can operate and build those same windows at a more neutral body position, therefore eliminating all of those waste bends. He will be a much safer employee over time. You can see that because we quantify the before and the after, we can measure the reduction and the improvement. In this case, nearly a 60% reduction in waste bends per week, down to under 2,500. We've got just a little bit of work to do because, as you can see, they still have a handful of traditional flat tables that we simply continue to work with the client to change out over time. But again, significant improvement and reduction of that exposure. And again, kind of brings to point the evolution of engineering that exposure out of the company. Here you can see an example of our risk report. So we're going to utilize REBA analysis or RAMP analysis to draw attention to certain exposures. We'll continue to use pictures along with video technology, and we're going to link access to certain video events within the report itself. We saw earlier the use of heat maps to draw attention to hotspots in their facility. And then this is where we also utilize some data from Swiss Re, where we actually are able to benchmark the client and their results versus their industry and draw attention to and shine a spotlight on where they are either significantly better or significantly worse than their industry counterparts. And then again, use that as kind of a guide to where we need to look a little bit further, analyze those heat map analysis, and again, surface and draw attention to the most critical areas for improvement. We provide a dashboard to them through our online app, and on the surface, it is just that. It really kind of draws attention to those most critical areas and what are those exposures that are contributing to their overall hazards in the workplace. In each of these cases, if this was the live demo or the live account, as I hovered over these different circles and bars, it would give you the quantity and what exactly it is. Otherwise, you can click on it and actually launch all of the videos that are contained in each of those. Otherwise, out to the right, we or the client can place some of those most critical videos so they have them at their fingertips. And again, they might use this for toolbox talks, employee training, and OSHA audit, but otherwise, more importantly, to build that culture of safety and really involve everyone from the company that has a role in workplace safety and providing this tool to them. There's unlimited users. Anyone in the company that has a role in workplace safety can have access to this, including the agent if they want to get involved as well. So here on this map, you can see essentially what we are targeting and where we are targeting it. The states that are highlighted, in every state that is green or blue, we have access and the ability to write the business through our wholesale operations. Those states in blue are where we are launching the MGA on 3/15. Again, more information to come out on that in the next week. We have most success on those accounts that are $100,000 and larger. Typically at that size, they've had a history of some losses. Maybe their mod is increasing or already a debit mod. And so they have what I refer to as a little bit of insurance pain that a solution like ours or technology like ours can solve. If they're a $50,000 clean manufacturer, they're going to have dozen or so carriers fawning over it, and it's simply going to get beat down in price, and they may or may not see the value in the technology that we bring. But make no mistake, the technology works for any company that has existing cameras in place or a willingness to implement them ASAP. We simply then ingest that video footage from them and provide those risk reports and those online apps. The industries that you see on the screen are the ones that we are having the most success with. So if typically they're in a four-wall exposure where they have static cameras, but we have the ability to write construction as well. Typically at a construction site, you are not going to have static cameras. Rather, we can utilize some technology that we have where we send a text to an on-site safety manager or supervisor, where it converts their camera into a remote inspection camera for our loss control team. They will then walk us through the job site. We'll check, fall protection, trench boxes, lockout, tagout, whatever the client is doing. We will do a thorough inspection of their work site. We'll do that 4 times a year, once a quarter. And during that inspection, it's recording that on-site inspection so that when we're all done, we will download that video and convert it to a mini risk report, very much on par with what you would get from a traditional carrier. And we will provide that to the client again, once a quarter or 4 times a year. That's mainly for the construction vertical. Everything else where we have static cameras, we can take it through our traditional computer vision and AI platforms. This, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, this is essentially a wedge. I've been through the training. Many of you have been through the training. This is something to help you differentiate yourself from your competitors, help you win those tough to get larger accounts, help you retain them. And along the way, you're not going to take a haircut. We're paying 8 to 10% commission to our agency partners. Essentially, we keep 1/3 and pay 2/3 of it to you. We are also, for everything that we bind between now and the end of April, for every binder, we're going to pay a $2,500 incentive as well. If, like I mentioned earlier, if you've got a client that's self-insured, they're in a captive, they just love their carrier, they've built a great relationship with the claims examiner, that's fine. We can still quote the software as a service. We're going to pay the agent, in this case, a 20% commission on that software sale, and then they can continue on forward with their existing carrier and augment that information with what they get through our program as well. I don't want to overcomplicate this and bore you with the licensing process. So if you've got a prospect that you simply haven't won over the last 3 years, or you've got a tough renewal that maybe you've got a large rate increase or a non-renewal from the carrier, or you simply want to see what we can deliver, all you have to do is send the submission to us. We just need the Accord app, the loss runs, a mod worksheet, email that to submissions@compscience.com, and we will get cracking on a quote for you. We will circle back. And ultimately, we would want to have a demo with a client where I do a much shorter client version of this and ultimately help you win or retain that account and execute on our technology to help improve that workplace safety and drive down the total cost of risk. At the end of the day, that is our technology and our platform and our value prop in a nutshell. I see that I do have some questions already coming in, so I'm going to go over to my my system to see what questions that we have. So the first one is, how much does this cost if we don't write the work comp policy, and how much if we do? So again, on the work comp policy, if we write the work comp, there is no charge for the technology. It's simply going to be covered through our commission by the carrier. You or the client do not have to pay anything for the technology. If we're quoting the software as a service, I'll give you a ballpark for a standard client. So a 50,000 square foot facility, up to 10 cameras for those same 2 reports a year, you're talking about a $10,000 to $15,000 annual outlay for the technology. The good news is it's scalable. You do not have to, if the facility is twice as big, you're not going to pay twice as much. We're going to make the technology scalable and affordable for those larger policies. The second question is really around security with the upload of the footage. So when the client ultimately looks to upload that video footage, and again, they're doing it twice a year, it is through a secure portal. So we have 256-bit encryption, multi-factor authentication. We're utilizing Amazon Web Service servers. So everything that a cyber expert would want us to do, we already have in place. So there's really no concern over the upload or transmission of video footage. Once it's on our servers, it stays there because once it's on our servers, we then populate that online app that you saw earlier. We utilize that information to populate the online app. But if at the client's request, if they want us to get rid of the video footage off of our servers, we will. It will then remove it from their app. So they will lose the dashboard and all of those videos for Toolbox talks and training, but we can do it at their request. Third question is around the videos and facial recognition. So we are not doing facial recognition. Remember, these are your existing or the client's existing video camera footage. We will anonymize it. So when we ultimately portray the video snippets back to the insured, we will pixelate or anonymize the face so they won't see who is doing it. We are compliant in all states with regards to the biometrics. So I think Illinois has the toughest rules around that. So we already conform to the biometric rules that are in place. Essentially, the employer does not have to attest to anything new. The employees have already attested to the fact that they are being videotaped. They do not have to do anything special with us. So hopefully that answers it. Now, at the end of the day, if we give back some information to the client that shows, somebody driving a forklift truck poorly, and they only have one forklift driver, they will know who that employee is. But what we do educate the clients is these are not intended to be gotcha moments. These are meant to be informative and to educate their employees so that they don't, they no longer perform those risky events any further. Next question, have you entered the behavioral-based safety area with this yet? I don't know as though I know exactly what that means. Earlier when we saw the fact that we saw have about a 66% improvement in behavioral risks. What I mean by that is we're able to identify those various exposures, quantify them back to the client, and really work to change that behavior. So I don't know if that specifically answers the question, but if not, please restate it and I will do my best to answer it accordingly. Otherwise, whomever it is, Ted, in this case, you can follow up with me after the meeting and we can address it more specifically. Any other questions from folks? All righty. Hearing none, we will follow up this webinar with, we will send out the slide deck to all of that attended. If you or your teams need an individual demo for the agency, just reach out to me. You'll see my contact information in the email, as well as a link to schedule a personal demo. If you want to invite me to a sales meeting for your team to educate producers, more than happy to do so. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said, if you have any opportunities coming up in the next 60 to 90 days, please send them either to me personally or to submissions@compscience.com. We'll get working on it, and ultimately can also join you with the client on a demo to show them, a more client specific version of these slides as well. But otherwise, look forward to hearing more from each of you. I appreciate your time today. And with that, again, let me know if you have any questions personally after the meeting. You can just shoot me an email or give me a shout. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day. Take care.